So,
Starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Only one team wins.
in terms of nominalism and the Reformation, as someone else pointed out, yeah, that is a deep topic. But that being said, a very short version is nominalism in the late medieval period was opposed primarily to realism. Realism being the idea that things have natures and essences, right? So something fundamentally is what it is in a kind of objective way. Nominalism, if you go to pure nominalism, is the view that, for example, pure nominalism is that there are no universals, right? So take the category dog. There are all kinds of individual animals, individual critters, who we would see it, and we'd say, oh, that's a dog, right? So you see a Great Dane, you say, oh, that's a dog. You see a poodle, you say, oh, that's a dog. You see a Chihuahua, you say, oh, that's a dog, okay? Because we have this idea of this universal, this nature, this category, dog, the canine nature. A nominalist would point out, like, well, look at that Chihuahua and look at that Great Dane and look at that poodle. They look nothing alike, right? In actuality, those three animals have very little in common. You have just created this name, this word, dog. You've created it in speech, and you've lumped all of these particulars into it. But that's kind of arbitrary, right? Someone else could come along and lump those particulars into a completely different category, right? So someone could create another category, mammals under 20 pounds, and then the Great Dane would not be in that category, but the Chihuahua would, right? And so they would say, see, so just you grouping them together is arbitrary, and it's basically a name only. That's where nominalism comes from. De nomine, right? It's named or called that. And central to the Reformation from Luther on is the idea that human beings who experience salvation do not become righteous. They are just declared by God to be righteous. Right? So righteousness is not a property that a creature doesn't have and then comes to have by being justified. Rather, the same person who's just as sinful as he ever was is declared to be righteous by God, like a judge issuing a verdict of guilty or innocent. Right? So a judge declared O.J. Simpson to be not guilty, but we all know he did it, right? We all know he killed somebody. Right? We all know O.J. Simpson, not a righteous man, right? But he was declared so by a judge. That's how Protestantism has always said that salvation works in justification. And justification is usually what's referred to as salvation. Now, Protestants will say, well, no, justification isn't all of salvation. There's also sanctification and glorification. But when they say, I'm saved, right? When they say, I'm saved, they mean justified. They mean they've been justified. Because sanctification and glorification, they would hold, can still be in the future tense.
Judge,
okay.
Jury,
and so the concepts of nominalism, that something can be something purely by virtue of being called that, or categorized as that, or declared to be that, is sort of a necessary ideological substructure in order to get, like, imputed righteousness and these other principles of the Protestant Reformation.
Tremble before fast!
There were some other good questions too, but I'm going to need them reposted.
Your team is close to winning. Dinner time, love! Disappear!
That's the boost I need. 1,000 gods!
So, there's a question of why the divine energies don't harm people because they are God himself in action, and so why people don't experience sort of death by holiness. And so the answer to that is twofold. So the answer, the quick answer, the short answer is the incarnation. The more detailed answer is that the incarnation, one of the effects of the incarnation is purification. And so in order to cooperate with the divine energies, our humanity has to be purified first. Right? This is why you don't have people undergoing theosis outside of the church and her sacraments. Normally. God can do what he wants. But the normal means is you are purified, beginning with baptism, and then in an ongoing basis through reception of the Eucharist. And that allows you to continue to cooperate with the divine energies.
That put a spring in my step?
Yeah, so
Don't rush in.
whether or not Orthodox Christianity teaches transubstantiation depends on what you mean by transubstantiation. Right? So if by transubstantiation you mean that there is an actual change by which bread and wine become no longer bread and wine, but the body and blood of Christ. Right? They were bread and wine. After the consecration, they are now the body and blood of Christ. That is what they are. Then, if that's how you're defining transubstantiation, then yes, the Orthodox Church teaches transubstantiation. If what you mean is by transubstantiation is the specific Thomistic understanding, for example, that it maintains the accidents of bread and wine, but the substance is now the body and blood of Christ. If you mean by that someone who had the eyes of faith would see actual human flesh and actual human blood, which is something sometimes claimed within Roman Catholic circles. If you mean any of that, then no, we don't believe in transubstantiation. And I agree that it's kind of unhelpful the way that people talk about it. That's why I don't use the term transubstantiation for our view, not because under some definitions it's not appropriate, but because it can confuse people. When I was coming into the church decades ago, people used to say, oh, we believe in transubstantiation, but not the way Roman Catholics do. And I was like, well, that's super unhelpful. Right? Like, what does that mean? Right? Like, the people who use the term most, we mean the same thing, but we also use the term. So the Greek word that's used is actually metamorphoses. Right? And so, which it literally means a change of form, morphe. But that's form in the sense of nature, really. In the same way that tonight at the Akathis we talked about Christ in the Incarnation taking on another form. We meant another nature, a human nature. the nature of bread and wine is transformed into the nature of the body and blood of Christ. This is Capwolf, by the way. Someone asked, essentially, if Christ died voluntarily, it is voluntary self-offering, isn't that kind of suicide? And no, because properly speaking, Christ did not take his own life. Properly speaking, Christ allowed himself to be killed, which is not the same thing, right? Many of the martyrs allowed themselves to be killed. They didn't resist, right? Not resisting someone who is going to kill you for your faith, not violently resisting, right? Accepting your death at their hands is not the same thing as taking one's own life. So, yeah.